Hey everyone, this is Anna here, and in this video I wanted to show you how I paint my birds, like the bird sculptures that I made. I had a previous video that I show how I make them. So what you see me doing here is I applied red iron oxide wash. And if you guys want, I can I can give you the recipe for the washes I use. So anyways, this is red iron oxide wash. I just painted on and then wiped it back. And I did that to each one of the birds, each one of the base. For each bird you see, I did the same process. So applied it and then wiped it back on each one. So then I applied copper carbonate wash. And I can also give you guys the recipe for that. That gives a real nice green when you put it under a clear glaze or any other translucent glaze. It really adds that really pretty green underneath a glaze. So here I wanted to make it so it resembles moss growing on a tree trunk. And I made some texture like you saw on the other video, on the previous video, where I used a little sculpting tool to make little holes. And then that's where I'm applying the copper wash to make that area green. So I did that on all the other bases as well. So here you see me applying some highlights to the head of the kingfisher. And I am using ultra white, which is Amico underglaze, over the 2 layers of this teal that I use. Actually was a mixture of underglazes that I did to get this teal color that is for the bird. But before that, so what I did before I start doing the shadows and highlights, I do about 2 coats of underglazes, not worrying about anything else but applying the color on the right places as I see on my reference picture. So I did the golden color on the chest and the teal colors on the wings and the head. But pretty much about 2 coats is what I did. And I use mostly Duncan underglazes, easy stroke. And I like them because they have the vibrant colors. And I also use some Amico velvets underglazes. They are more opaque. They're not as translucent as Duncan underglazes are. So then after that, I wait until it dries really well. Then I go back and I start using, as you can see on the head, I start dabbing a little bit of color, which was a darker teal color to make a little contrast. And then I came with the white at the edges of each feather. And here I am using a flat brush with a rounded edge, which came in handy because I was just dabbing the white at the ends of the feathers, and that worked out really well. So the kingfisher, from what I noticed on the pictures, they have these edges on the edges of the feathers. They're white. They have that on the head and also throughout their wings. And that's what I was doing here. I was just applying that randomly on the feathers. And so I continued doing that same technique throughout on the other birds as well. So did my 2 coats of basic color, or whatever the bird was, the colors that I was looking on the pictures. And then I waited until it dried really well. Then I came back and started doing highlights, started doing the shadow like you see here. On underneath each feather, I used a darker blue teal color just to make it contrast. So it stands out more when it dries, and when you fire, you can see that kind of shadow in between each feather. Another thing is I like the translucent underglazes for pieces that are textured because I'm not going for the solid colors because they are so textured. I wanted to enhance that. So by using translucent underglazes, where whenever you apply that, it pulls on the crevices of your texture, just helping those textures just to enhance the texture. So I call this kind of like a watercolor technique, which is not really solid colors. Like some people use the real heavy, opaque underglazes, which is fine, but that's not what I wanted here for my birds because of the texture. Same thing on the base, how I did the darker on the crevices using the wash. That's the same type of effect. And then when you wipe it back, it shows more. It shows it darker on the grooves. Same thing on the feathers. Now here on the chest, I had already used that golden color. I believe the color is sienna yellow or sienna brown. And then I used a little bit of white for the highlights. And now I'm using the darker brown around the round feathers on the chest, as you can see. And that gives a real nice effect. It gives a lot of depth by using, like I said before, by using the base color first, which is usually like the medium color, not dark, not too dark, not too light. And then you can go back and add, the lighter colors and then the darker colors, like I'm doing right now, to add more definition of each feather. Now I did the same thing around his eyes, adding some more definition with the darker color. And also around the white feathers, because the white is never like pure white. There are also some other colors on the feathers there. It's not just white. So I'm adding or dabbing the color just so it's not pure white. So here you see me adding a little bit more of the yellow. I lightened that yellow so that it gives that light on his chest because it protrudes out. So I wanted to add that highlight on his chest. I'm adding some details on his beak and his little feet. I add the shadow also between his toes on each side, in between also. So it doesn't look like the flat color. So he's pretty much done with the underglazing, but I decided to bisque fire one more time just to give me a chance to do a touch-up if I needed to. So this is the bird that I showed on the previous video on how to sculpt and carve a bird. And I just wanted to show you that I'm painting using the same technique. I'm just adding some highlights on the feathers here. And I will show pictures of all the birds I did at the end. Hey everyone, this is Anna here. I just wanted to show you the results of the birds after I painted them. I'm super happy on how they turned out. The colors turned out just wonderful. And I'm so glad I made the decision of leaving the birds unglazed, just with the underglazes, and then glazing the eyes and their beaks and whatever they're eating. And then the base, as you saw how I applied the oxide washes and then I applied the clear glaze. I also added some crackle glazes. So these are my new glazes that I bought and I just tested them. They are Laguna Crackle. So this beautiful green here is called Emerald Isle. It's a beautiful crackle green glaze. And then this one here is it's called Sky. And it's like a blue, almost like has a hint of purple in it. So it's very pretty. So what I did also, besides having all the copper wash and the red iron oxide and the clear glaze, I went over the clear glaze and I applied some drops of these two colors here too. And it just added to the mix of the crackled, how they pulled into the little holes that I have here on the branches. And uh, like on this one, you can really see it almost looks like when you put glass on something, the glass beads, and then it melts and it forms that crackle, really pretty glaze color. So this one is like, I think I applied the emerald dye in here. It looks really nice. And I was going for that moss, looks like the moss is growing on the tree trunk. So this bird was a little tricky because of the position. So he was a little bit more challenging to sculpt because his body is twisted, but it was fun to sculpt. And also on all the birds, all the sculptures, I'm attaching the tail to wherever they're perched on. So this one, it is attached on the side because as you see, his tail kind of curved this way. So that gave me a spot to attach his tail on the side so that it gives you an illusion that he's only perched in here, but he's actually well attached also on the back. So that I made sure that they all are very well attached. So there is no chance of, something snapping off. Also, the reason why I decided to put clear glaze on their beaks was because of the same thing, to make it stronger. Because some of the other birds have something hanging, like the kingfisher has the fish hanging here, and the owl has the worm that he's eating. So I wanted to make it stronger so that it's not going to easily snap off. So that's the other reason why I applied the clear glaze. And it was a little tricky because the clear glaze I use, which is a wonderful clear glaze, is the Kitten's Clear. And you guys can look at the recipes on my community tab. The recipe is there. But it's a wonderful glaze for going over underglazes because it's zinc free, so it doesn't affect the colors of your underglazes. The only tricky part is that it is dipping glaze. So I had to be very careful when I was painting just to make sure that nothing would get out of the area where I really wanted to, like the eyes and the beak. Then this one was easier. It's just really the eyes, the painting their eyes with a little fine brush using the clear glaze. That was the tricky part. And on this one, I didn't show in the video, but I used different shades of green for the cactus. And then I applied some darker green color with a sponge just to add a little bit more depth to it. And then as you can see the little spikes of the cactus, I used the red iron oxide and I wiped it back so you can see over there. You can see it here. So I did that all around because this was a smooth surface. So I wanted to add a little bit more depth just with underglazes and oxides. So I think it turned out really nice. The base and then the owl, I loved how it looks. So I added many shades of browns and white. Did the same process as you saw in the video to add the shadows and the highlights. So I really like how he turned out. And then this is the kingfisher you saw. You saw me painting. You saw me painting the breast area here, adding the different shades of brown and yellow for the highlights here, and all the white that he has on his feathers at the ends of each feather. it really shows up. And I love the color, the teal with the blue, the darker blue in between the feathers. And you can see the fish turned out also really cute. And last but not least, this guy that has the beautiful turquoise colors throughout. So I mentioned that I fired these twice for bisque fire. And the reason for that was that I wanted to have a chance to do touch-ups. So I did the bisque fire, and then the second time I did some touch-ups, and I also looked at the color, the overall color, and saw that, like on this one, for example, I added a little bit darker blue, as I saw in the picture, that I had missed. So sometimes you miss things, and then you need a second look. And then I realized he had like a little darker blue area right in front of his head. So I did that. I added almost like a royal blue. I don't know if I'm capturing this on the video. And then I added a little lighter blue here. But I like how he turned out. So those are the results. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully you can use this technique not only for sculptures, but you can apply that for other things as well using this watercolor technique. You don't have to go really heavy with underglazes, just thin coats of the underglazes, and then using different shades gives you a lot of depth. So let me know what you guys think, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I'm sorry that I didn't have a video last week, but I was really busy trying to finish these guys, and they will be going to the gallery tomorrow. Thanks for watching again, guys, and hopefully you see another video next week. Bye-bye.